बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम वसल्लल्लाहु अला नबिय्यिल करीम रब्बि इश्रह ली सदरी वयस्सिर ली अमरी वहलुल उक़दतम मिन लिसानी यफ़क़हू क़ौली। The theme for the present talk is lessons from the Islamic history. Lessons from the history of Islam. History of Islam is a very wide subject. There are many aspects, but this time I will say something about one aspect, that is Dawa aspect or theoretical aspect. You know, Prophet of Islam was born in Mecca in 570 AD. He died in 632 in Medina. He was appointed as a prophet in 610. At that time he was in Mecca. The first revelation he received in Mecca, namely in the cave of Hira, was very simple. This first revelation was Iqra bismi rabbikal ladhi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq, Iqra wa rabbukal akram, alladhi allama bil qalam. In this verse you can see that the emphasis is on reading. Iqra, read. Then allama bil qalam. Then it gives emphasis the pen, that is book, because you write book with the aid of pen. So what is this Iqra and what is this Talib bil qalam? It means that the first thing that is required in Islamic activism or Islamic Dawa, that is reading or educational activism. You can say that Islam is basically, the method of Islam is basically based on education or educational activism. So it is the first important aspect of Islam. Islam begins from education. Islam begins from Iqra. Education means intellectual awakening. When you educate people, you try to awaken them in terms of intellectual thinking. The first of all is to awaken their mind, to try to intellectual awakening. So this is the first point. Islamic history begins from education and not from sword. It is general impression that Islam begins from sword. It is not correct. Islam begins from education or from educational activism. This is the starting point of Islam or Islamic Dawa. Then one of the early revelation was Al-Muddassir, chapter Al-Muddassir. This chapter says, Ya ayyuhal muddassir qum fa'anzir wa rabbaka fakabbir wa siyabaka fatahhir وَالرُّجْزَ فَهْجُرْ وَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. In these verses, you find that basically there are 3 points. 3 points. First, al-inzar, that is dawa work. Then warabbaka fakabbir, that is making God your supreme concern. Then walirabbaka fasbir, that is patience or avoidance. So there are 3-point formula. This is dawa work, making God your supreme concern, and then keep patience, sabr. It means that Islamic activism is based basically on dawa work. So it means that do dawa work and avoid all kind of confrontation. Avoid confrontation in other problems, other fields, and make God your sole concern. This is the basic formula of dawa work. Islam begins from discovery, from the realization of God. When you realize God, you become a da'i, and dawa mission is your only mission. Dawa becomes your only mission. So this is the 3-point formula of dawa work. One is inzar, that is conveying the message of God to all mankind. Then the second is making God your sole concern, that is takbir Rabb, Rabbaka fakabbir. Then walirabbika fasbir, that is avoid all kind of confrontation. Sabr or patience means avoidance. When you try to avoid all kind of other things, all kind of things other than dawa, that is sabr. So this is the basic formula of Islamic dawa. This is the basic formula of Islamic dawa. So it is the first lesson from the Islamic history, that Islam begins from intellectual awakening, from educational revolution, and not from sword, and not from war. It is wrong. Then what happened? When Prophet was appointed as a prophet, at that time in Mecca the people were idol worshippers. They went to the extent that they turned Mecca as a idol house. Mecca was built by Prophet Ibrahim as a house of God, Baitullah, that is for the worship of God. So Mecca was basically a house of Tawheed. But after some time, after some centuries, Mushrik people occupied Mecca and Kaaba, and they placed 360 idols in Kaaba premises. So this was the situation at that time. Prophet was a prophet of Tawheed, that is worshipping one God, but he never started by destroying all those idols. No, this was not the way of the Prophet of Islam. He only started his mission by saying, Ayyuhan nas qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu. O people, say, God is one. There is no God other than God. And you will be success. This was the starting point. He never tried to destroy all those idols placed in Kaaba premises. Why? Because it was confrontation. Prophet was given direction from God that don't go to confrontation. Simply do the work by peaceful method. That is dissemination of the word of God, conveying the word of God to all people by peaceful method. So trying to destroy all those idols was confrontation. It was bound to create confrontation. So he completely avoided. So the way of the Prophet of Islam was do the work and avoid all kind of practical confrontation. So he started his mission by following this wisdom. Then, the people of Mecca turned hostile. They became enemy of his mission. They wanted to kill the Prophet. Then what happened? The Prophet of Islam again opted for migration rather than confrontation. What is called hijrah. Now, what is hijrah? Hijrah means opting for another place of work, to change the place of work. So migration or hijrah was to change the place of work. At that time there were two leaders in Mecca, Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab. These two leaders both the leaders were arrogant, were very stubborn. So it was very difficult to do the work in Mecca. But in Medina, there were two leaders, Sa'd ibn Abada and Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. But these two leaders were quite different from Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab. They were modest in nature. Sa'd ibn Abada and Sa'd ibn Mu'adh both were modest in nature. They were lenient. They were very simple. So it was very easy to deal with these two leaders in Medina. Makkah was occupied by two arrogant leaders, that is Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab. But in Medina, there were different kind of leadership. Here, the leaders were Sa'd ibn Mu'adh and Sa'd ibn Abada. Both were modest persons. So Prophet of Islam changed the workplace. He migrated from Mecca to Medina. And history shows that in Medina, in Medina, the situation was quite different. In a very short period, the majority of Medina people accepted Islam. So we read in the book of history, of early history, that lam tabqa darum min duril ansar illa wa dakhala fihi al-Islam. It means that in every house of Medina, people accepted Islam. So the situation was quite different. Due to this reason, Prophet migrated from Mecca to Medina. It was not simply a hijrah, not simply a migration. It was opting for better place for Dawa work. Hijrah was, literal meaning of hijrah is migration, but it was not simply a migration. Hijrah was a method of Dawa. Hijrah was a method of Dawa. Hijrah means opting for a better place for Dawa work. So, result shows that the assessment of Prophet of Islam was quite correct. In a very short period, the whole Medina was Islamized. That seems to be possible in Mecca. So this is the lesson, this is a great lesson of prophetic uswa, prophetic model, that when you find that in a given place there is some difficulties, people are very stubborn, people are arrogant, so you have to opt for another place. Don't go to confrontation. Don't go to fighting. So your option must be, here I would like to narrate a very important, very relevant hadith. Aisha was a wife of the Prophet of Islam. She was very intelligent, and she is the major source of fiqh. So there is a hadith narrated by Aisha in Sahih al-Bukhari that ما خير رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بين أمرين إلا اختار أيسرهما. It means that whenever the Prophet of Islam had to choose between the two, he always opted for easier and not harder. It means that every time, in every situation, there are two options: easier option and harder option. Now, what is easier option and what is the harder option? Going to confrontation is harder option, and work with peaceful method is easier option. So Prophet of Islam always opted for peaceful method and not violent method. Violent method is harder option, and peaceful method is easier option. So this is the prophetic method of Dawa. In every situation, in every country, we have to analyze the situation. We have to read the situation. We have to discover which one is easier and which one is harder. Basically, there are two different options. Basically, there are two different methods: peaceful method and violent method. So it is very clear that peaceful method is easier and violent method is harder. So Muslims have to follow this uswa, this model of the Prophet of Islam. In every situation, in every circumstances, in every field, they have to follow, they have to opt for peaceful method, and they have to avoid what is violent method. This is the this is the this is the way of the Prophet of Islam. This is the uswa of the Prophet of Islam. And the Quran says, "Laqad kana lakum fi Rasulillahi uswatun hasana." In the Prophet of Islam, there is best example for you. So the example of the Prophet of Islam is the best example. We have to follow this example. And this example is based basically on this formula, that in every situation there are two different options. Easier method is peaceful method, and harder method is violent method. So you have to opt for peaceful method, and you have to abandon the violent method. This is the this is the this is a great lesson from the early period of Islam. Then the history of Islam tells us that Dawa victory is always outcome of political defeat. Where there is political defeat, there is opportunity to have political Dawa victory. It is a very important lesson we find in the early period of Islam. Here I would like to refer some events from the Islamic history. For example, in the 622 AD, there was an agreement that is called Hudaybiyah Agreement. After 6 years of Hijrah. So in this agreement, there are two parties. First was Prophet of Islam and his companions, and the second was the Quraysh of Mecca. Quraysh of Mecca at that time were mushrik people. So they were hostile. They became enemy of Islam. So the Prophet of Islam wanted to finalize an agreement between the two parties to establish peace. You know, after migration, they attacked Medina. They waged war unilaterally. So due to their aggression, there were some wars like Badr and Uhud. So Prophet of Islam wanted to establish peace because peace is the summum bonum in Islam. Peace is the greatest concern of Islam. According to Islamic thinking, peace is must, because without peace you cannot do anything. Even ibadah or dawa work or any kind of positive activities are possible only in peaceful situation. So peace is the greatest concern of Islam. So Prophet of Islam wanted to establish peace. So he began negotiations. After 15 days of negotiation, Quraysh said, yes, we are ready to establish peace, but on our own conditions. It was a very difficult time. Quraysh were ready to sign on the document of peace, but on their own condition. They refused to accept any condition given by the Prophet of Islam or by the by the companions of the Prophet. The situation was that either you have to accept peace on their conditions, or there is no peace. There is no other option. There was no third option. So Prophet of Islam accepted all their conditions. You know, one of his companion was Umar Farooq. He said, why we accept this kind of agreement? In the word of Umar Farooq, this was a humiliating agreement. Umar Farooq said that Hudaybiyah agreement, present in its present form, is a humiliating agreement. So we are not ready to accept this kind of agreement. But Prophet of Islam said that it is the command of God. God likes it. So after great insistence by the Prophet of Islam, the companions accepted this agreement, and it was finalized in 622 AD. So apparently, Hudaybiyah agreement was a humiliating agreement. It was completely a unilateral type of agreement. But what happened? Just after the finalization of this agreement, Prophet received a revelation from God. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. This you can read in the chapter number 48 of the Quran. Chapter Al-Fatah begins from this verse. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. So Prophet of Islam received this revelation just after the finalization of the Hudaybiyah agreement. You see, apparently, the Hudaybiyah agreement was a humiliating agreement. It was a sign of defeat. But Quran says that it is a fatah. It is a clear fatah. Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina. We gave you a clear victory. We gave you a clear victory. Now what it means? What is the meaning of this verse? It means that victory is outcome of defeat. It is a very strange formula. Hudaybiyah agreement was an agreement of defeat, but Quran says it is agreement of fatah. It means that according to the Quranic thinking, according to the Quranic formula, victory is a result of defeat. Very strange formula. It is very clear. It is very clear. All the companions accepted this reluctantly. You can see the history. After great insistence by the Prophet of Islam, the companions accepted it reluctantly, because apparently it was an agreement of defeat. It was a humiliating agreement. But just after completion of this agreement, Prophet received this revelation, Inna fatahna laka fatham mubina, that this agreement is a fatah, it is a victory. It means that in the eye of the Quran, victory is a result of defeat. And history shows that it happened. just after 2 years of this agreement, after merely 2 years of the finalizing of this agreement, their history shows a miracle. History sees a miracle. At the time of agreement, the number of the companions was hardly 1,500. At the time of agreement, the number of the companions was hardly 1,500. But barely after 2 years, the companions became no less than 10,000. 10,000. This number was so great that they were able to Islamize the whole Arabia. They were able to occupy the whole Arabia. So first of all, they occupied Mecca and then the whole Arabia. So although this agreement was an agreement of defeat, but from this defeat emerged a victory. This is the lesson from the early period of history of Islam. From this lesson, we can understand that victory is a result of defeat. When there is defeat, there is a victory. It is the law of nature. Inna fatana laka fatah mubina was not simply a verse of the Quran, but it was a law of nature. It was an expression of law of nature. According to the law of nature, victory is a result of defeat. Because why? What is the reason? Where there is confrontation, where there is war, where there is fighting, then all the positive activities are in the state of halt. War stops all kind of positive activities. War stops all kind of positive activities. But when there is defeat, there is peace. Defeat means peace. So when there is peace, all kind of positive activities are in action. So after this agreement, all the companions were busy in Dawa work. Dawa work. And Dawa is the greatest strength of the Islam. Dawa is the greatest strength of the religion of Islam. So after this agreement established peace in Arabia. And when there was a peace, there was companions tried to avail all those opportunities in the field of Dawa. So Dawa is the greatest strength of Islam. Then you see, in the 13th century, Mongol occupied the whole Abbasid Empire. Mongols were barbaric tribes. They became angry due to some reason in 13th century. They destroyed the Abbasid Empire from Samarkand up to Halab. They destroyed all the mosques, all the institutions. They killed million and billion people. So it was a great defeat. It was great defeat. But within 50 years, within 50 years, there emerged a miracle. The majority of Mongols accepted Islam. The majority of Mongols accepted Islam. All the historians accept this event, but with great astonishment. Here I quote only two historians. British historian Professor Professor T.W. Arnold observes in his book The Preaching of Islam. He refers this event that those Mongols who destroyed Abbasid Empire, they they embraced Islam and became soldiers of Islam. So he says that in this book, the conquerors accepted the legend of the conquered. The conquerors accepted the religion of the conquered. By this remark, you can understand that Dawa power of Islam is far more greater than the political power. Abbasid Empire was a political power. Abbasid Caliphate was a political power. So when this political power disappeared, Mongols faced the Dawa power of Islam, the ideological power of Islam. So they accepted Islam. No one can stand against, no can stand before the ideological power of Islam. So they accepted Islam. And Professor Arnold says in this book, the Preaching of Islam, by referring this event, that the conquerors accepted the religion of the conquered. Then I will quote Professor Philip Hitti. He was a great Christian scholar. He observed in his book, The History of the Arabs. He refers this event, that how Mongols accepted Islam, although they before their acceptance they destroyed the Abbasid Caliphate. But when they but when they but when they faced the Islamic ideology, Islamic religion, Islamic Dawa, they Islamic Dawa occupied them, occupied their mind, occupied their heart. So they accepted Islam. So Philip Hitti observes in this book, he says, the religion of Muslims have conquered where their arms have failed. The religion of Muslims have conquered where their arms had failed. So it is very strange, but it happened. By this event, we can draw a lesson that political power, we can draw a lesson that ideological power of Islam is far more greater than the political power. The ideological is the ideological power of Islam is far more greater than the political power. This is a great lesson we draw from the Islamic history. If you lose political power, don't go to frustration, because already you have dawa eh, opportunities. Don't complain about political power, but avail all those dawa opportunities and you will be success. Then let us take the present situation. After colonialism, Western powers occupied Muslim countries in political terms. And politically, they occupied Muslim countries, Muslim nations, after the emergence of colonialism. But here again, history repeats itself. Although Muslims were defeated in terms of politics, in terms of political power, but at the same time, Islam emerged as a great ideological power. Recently, a survey recently a survey was established. A survey was published in some magazine. This survey was conducted by some institutions, some American institutions. This survey shows that Islam is the fastest growing religion of the world. Islam is the fastest growing religion of the present world. According to this survey, every year more than 1 lakh people embraced Islam. In America, in America, more than 1 lakh people are accepting Islam every year. So this is the victory of ideological Islam. Although Islam is not a great political power, but at the same time, Islam is a great ideological power. In terms of ideology, Islam is capturing their heart, their mind. So this is the lesson we can draw from the history of Islam. There is a verse in the Quran, "Inna ma'al usri yusra." With every hardship, there is ease. With every hardship, there is ease. This is the law of nature. This Quranic verse refers a law of nature. It is a law of nature that with every hardship, there is ease. It means that, according to the law of nature, in every situation, when you find some hardship, some difficulty, some problem, you should believe that at the same time, along with those problems, there are opportunities. So you have to ignore the problems. You have to follow this formula. Ignore the problems and avail the opportunities. This formula was followed by the Prophet of Islam. All those success of early period of Islam was due to this formula. Ignore the problems and avail the opportunities. In this present age, there are so many problems. Muslims are always busy in complaint and protest. But why complain? Why protest? All these complaints and all these protests are absurd, meaningless. Why? Because when Quran says that in every hardship there is ease, with every problem there are opportunities. So you have to take a lesson from this Quranic verse. You have to avoid all those so-called problems, and you have to avail the opportunities. If this, it is not simply a Quranic verse. It is a, it is a, it is an expression of law of nature. It is law of nature. No one has, no one is so strong to abolish the law of nature. With every hardship, there is ease. With every problem, there are opportunities. This is a law of nature. And no one is so powerful to abolish this, this law of nature. So in every situation, you have to believe that if there are some problems, there must be some opportunities. You have to believe this in advance. This is an article of belief. According to the Quran, this is an article of belief. And I think that the present world is not an exception. Present world is not an exception. In the present world, also there must be opportunities. Although there are problems, but there must be some opportunities, great opportunities. Then I can say that problems are a part of nature, part of life. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Problems, according to this verse, according to this Quranic verse, problems are part of creation. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We created man with difficulties. This is a Quranic verse. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. God says that we created man with difficulties. So difficulties or problems are part of creation. It is part of creation. It is not part of enmity. I can say that according to this Quranic verse, problems are the part of creation. Problems are not part of enmity or conspiration. Problems are not part of some enmity or some conspiration. No, problems are part of nature, part of creation. So we cannot abolish these problems. It is beyond our capacity. Who can abolish the law of nature? Who can change the course of creation? It is not possible for anyone. So we have to adopt this formula. Avoid the problems and avail the opportunities. This is the only option for us. So I can say with certainty that present world is not an exception. People are engaged in declaring that there are enemies, there are conspirators, this and that. But I don't believe all these things. The real problem is that we are facing the law of nature. No enemy is problem. No conspirator is problem. The problem is inherent in the law of nature. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. So first of all, we have to accept this reality that problems are not a creation of some enemy. Problems are creation of creation of the of God, the Creator. So, so if it is part of creation, we have no option other than to accept it as it is. So due to this, I can say that we have to adopt this formula. Ignore the problems and avail the opportunities. Our present world have opened so many new doors of the work. For example, for the first time in history, there is completely we we enjoy complete religious freedom. We at present we enjoy complete religious freedom. It is a great boon for us. Complete religious freedom means that we are free to practice Islam, we are free to disseminate Islam, we are free to do the work. This is a great, great blessing for us. So complete religious freedom is a new phenomenon. And in this world, and in our present world, we enjoy complete religious freedom. Then we know there are communication. This age is age of communication. In this age, we are living in the in in the in a new world of communication. There are print media, there are electronic media, there are multimedia. So these these opportunities are very, very important for us. So we have to avail all these opportunities. We have to avail all those communication. We have to avail all those print and electronic media to disseminate the Islamic message. This is an opportunity, and we have to avail this opportunity. Then there is a new kind of mindset, that is spirit of inquiry. The present world is obsessed with with knowledge, with information. They want to know. They want to know. This spirit was inculcated by the scientific revolution. So our world is world of inquiry. Everyone wants to know, want to increase his knowledge. So we have. It means that everyone is curious to know about the truth, about Islam, about the history of Islam, about the Prophet of God. Everyone is curious. This is a new phenomenon. During previous ages, this was not. The pre-scientific era was a of era of superstition, era of mythology, era of, of religious persecution. But now we live a new kind of situation. So people want to know more and more. People want to know more and more. So this is a great opportunity for us. We have to avail this opportunity in field of Dawa. We have to publish books on Islam. We have to launch Islamic TV. So we have to avail all those communications. We have to avail this opportunity. So I think that complaint and protest is haram in Islam. There is no room for complaint and protest in Islam. Why complain? Why complain? Why protest? When there are enormous opportunities, we have to avail these opportunities. When there are enormous opportunities, so why complain? We have to avail all these opportunities. So I think that we have to reassess the whole situation. We have to revise our thinking. We have to rediscover the present age. After reassessment, we will find that everything is favorable to us. No enmity, no conspiracy. So I can say that adopt this formula, ignore the problems and avail the opportunities. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم أجمعين.